Okay. So is the PPT visible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir.
It is visible.
Sure. So after today's lecture, I will launch a quiz which will contain questions from the last three lectures. Preferably that quiz will be up by tomorrow evening, if not sooner. So in last lecture, we talked about univariate analysis, which is a part of descriptive statistics in which we try to understand each variable in our data. So if you are doing some kind of data analysis in your MTech project or in your thesis project, you might like to look at each variable individually and try to understand what are the different values, the mean, median, mode, and the variance, and try to have a good hand of what that variable looks like in your data set. Going forward from descriptive statistics, we invariably move towards the inferential statistics, wherein we are not only interested in how one variable is behaving, but also how it is correlated or associated with certain other variables. So when we are picking up two variables at a time and trying to understand the relationship between them, we do a bivariate analysis. When we are trying to understand the relationship of one variable with multiple other variables, which are two or more than two, then we go for more complex analysis known as regression analysis. And then there are different ways to accomplish that. So, but step by step, our understanding of the analysis is formed. And only when we understand the lower level things, we become capable of understanding what is happening at the higher level. So today we will be talking about bivariate analysis, the analysis of two variables, and obviously the different kinds of variables. So the discussion points will be how do we analyze two categorical variables? That is a one situation. The another situation is when one is categorical and other is continuous variable. The third is two continuous variables, which hopefully I assume you already know is accomplished by the use of scatter plot. And but what remains understood before we delve into bivariate analysis is that our variables have been cleaned, and the because obviously we did univariate analysis before bivariate analysis, so each variable should be looked for its valid values, applicable values, and all the missing blank values or values that do not make sense at all must be removed, or some decision should be taken about what to do about them. And this is important only when we look at the codebook definitions of the variables. Now, you will come across many data sets in your life wherein you will be using your data for the analysis, but you won't always find the code books. In that situation, what you will have to do is to use your intuitive knowledge to understand what is happening in the data set, look at its values, and then try to arrive at a decision. So, for today's discussion, it's not going to be a longer lecture, but we will be handling two categorical variables, one categorical and one continuous, and two continuous variables. The data remains the same that last time I had shared. So, all the commands that are executed here, you can execute on the same data set, data.csv that I had shared the last time. So for two categorical variables, what we use is called as a contingency table. We use a table, so the idea behind the table is rows and columns. So if there are two variables, then there are suppose n categories of one variable. देख लो आप. Hmm. So there are, sorry for the interruption. So there are n categories of one variable and m categories of other variable, then there will be n cross m contingency table. So we will understand that for people who are belonging to one category, how many there are belonging in the other category. And that is the idea behind analysis of contingency table, which is used to understand how two variables are associated with each other. Now, very simple example, if in my data set I have people who have certain disease, yes or no, and then there is gender, so male and female. So I want to see how many males have that disease, how many females have that disease, and what is the percentage of males. So out of all the males, what percentage of males have that disease? Out of all the females, what percentage of females have that disease? So that is why we use contingency table. Now, when there are more than two categorical variables, so the contingency table becomes multidimensional. So it becomes three-dimensional. That is difficult to visualize on 2D space, but that is how it is. So in this example, if I want to understand what is the relationship between diabetes and gender, so first I draw a contingency table. But before that, I will remove the data points in diabetes which do not make much sense to me. So if you look at the code book, this 1 means yes, 3 means no, and then I remove all the values which are different from 1 and 3. And hence I get this my renewed data set in which I only have data of 1 and 3. Do you face any noise from my side? Are you facing any noise from my side?
No, ma'am.
Are you sure?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, so after I've cleaned the variable diabetes, now I go forward to create a table of diabetes versus sex. So this is the command table, the first variable, which will become the row, and the second variable, which will become the column. Note that this is the renewed dataset that I have used. And similarly for variable sex also, you have to check if there are any other values which are different from male and female and try to take the decision accordingly. So when I make this table, I see that people who are diabetic, so this one stands for diabetic, out of them, these many belong to males, these many belong to females. And for those who are not diabetic, these many belong to male, these many belong to female. So now these are the absolute numbers. But I also want to understand what percentage of males. So this column is for males, right? So in this column, I want to understand what percentage of people are males are diabetic. And for this column, which is for females, I want to understand what percentage of females are diabetic. So I create a function in R. In R, a function is created like this is the function name, then you put the command function, then you list the variables, and then you try to show what kind of operations are being called. So if I say A is the numerator and B is the non-diabetic case. So A is a diabetic case, B is a non-diabetic case, and I want to understand the diabetic case out of the total population. Then this will be obviously A upon A plus B. Why I have written B? Because this is the non-diabetic, and so is this becomes A, this becomes B, and then I can easily compute. So total people will obviously this plus this, and the numerator will be 27,000. So this is how I create the function and I return the percentage after rounding it to two decimal digits. And when I compute the percentage of males who are diabetic and call this function, so TB1, so in a table, this is the TB is the identifier of this table. So this element is TB1, this is TB2, TB3, and TB4. So now I call this function TB1, TB2, and so for almost 14.6% of males in my dataset are diabetic, and 13.8% are of females are non-diabetic. So this is how two categorical variables are analyzed. You must always remember one thing that even though we are able to see that males do have a slight higher prevalence of diabetes, these tests are again not statistically proven that males do have. Only in this data, there is a step beyond this bivariate analysis, which actually includes more complex tests, which will attest to the fact that in this dataset, do men actually have a higher prevalence of diabetes as compared to females. But that is beyond this module. But to give a brief idea, when you have two categorical variables, that is how you analyze them. Now, I want to ask you from your general day to day life, what kind of categorical variables you might to analyze together? Any example? Any example you can think of wherein you would like to analyze two categorical variables?
Ma'am, it can be blood pressure and all that.
So if blood pressure is high blood pressure and low blood pressure,
Yes, ma'am.
and males and females,
Yes, ma'am. We can differentiate.
yeah, we can differentiate definitely.
Yes, ma'am.
What else?
Same way we can do obese, not obese, and
Obese, not
female.
obese, yeah. And in your class, we can check how many males are in the EC, how many females are in the CSE. So CSEC versus males and females. Yeah,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
in your class, you have students belonging to two disciplines. We can do that kind of analysis. So two categorical variables always have to be analyzed using a contingency table. It's a tabulated form. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is your homework in the data set that you have. You will have to see how sex variable correlates with cholesterol using a contingency table versus blood pressure. So in the question, the blood pressure question is, have you ever been told by a physician if you have high blood pressure or low blood pressure? Similarly for cholesterol. For the exercise question is, do you exercise? So just try to see how many males exercise and how many females exercise and see the percentage also. And when I say tabulate, that means both absolute numbers also and percentage also. And then for this sex variable versus general health. So general health, if you remember how many categories it had.
Ma'am, I think it is 8 categories. 7 to 8.
It had 5 categories. Excellent, very good, good,
Good. Yes,
poor,
ma'am.
fair.
Yes, ma'am.
Fair, poor. So there were 5 categories. So in those 5 categories, again, what will be the order of the matrix of the table? Five
Ma'am,
cross two.
yes, ma'am. 5 cross 5. Starting with excellent, good. Sorry, excellent, very good, good.
Yeah. So there will be 5 cross 2 entries in which you will see that how many males belong to a particular category, how many females belong to a particular category. When you are computing percentage, be very careful. The percentage has to be either computed row wise or column wise. It's not from the entire population. If from the entire population, then you would just do a univariate analysis in which you want to see how many people belonging to different general health categories belong in the different population. But when you bring another variable, then you have to be very cautious of how you compute the percentage. And always remember, even though softwares are there for data analysis, you must always keep a pen and pencil handy and try to verify the analysis, especially univariate and bivariate analysis that the software gives in its output. So that is very important. And as I always mention, data processing, cleaning, and acquisition form the major decision processes before you actually go to modeling and analyzing it. So a lot of attention has to be gone there. Now coming to one categorical and one continuous variable. When one variable is continuous in nature and other is categorical. So for example, BMI. BMI is continuous in quantitative terms, and I want to understand how the BMI of males and female differs, right? Sometimes, so for example, if you are in sales and you are selling your product and you want to see how your sales differs from male and female, how the marks in the class differ from male and female. So these are all the examples, how the marks differ among the students belonging to ECE and among the students belonging to CSE. So there is one is continuous variable, other is categorical. Then how do you analyze or how do you see the patterns in that? And for that, we use something called as side by side box plots. That is one way to analyze. Another could be to see the histograms of the BMI variable for both the genders superimposed on each other. So when they are superimposed on each other, it becomes easier to see the pattern. In this, I have used box plots because it clearly shows. So if this is the side by side box plot I have made of BMI, which is a continuous variable, and diabetes. So people either have diabetes or don't have diabetes. Now, what do you observe when you look at this plot? What are your observations? For that, you must remember what a box plot is, what the middle line denotes, what the lower line denotes. If you know what a box plot is, then you can interpret the box plot for the category of diabetic and the non-diabetic and then compare the two. So I would like to know from you, what is it that you can interpret looking at this plot, which is called as the side by side box plot?
Minimum for both the categories is almost same.
What?
Minimum value in each category.
It's almost same, just a slight increase in people who are diabetic. Just a very
Yeah.
slight, yeah. Yeah.
And maximum is very less in label tree class than
Non-diabetic, yeah.
to one.
And
And
what could it possibly mean?
uh, like people in the first class has higher BMI value than the people in the tree maximum value, I mean.
So that is the data observation that you have told me, that people who are diabetic, they have higher maximum BMI as compared to people who are non-diabetic.
Yes.
So how will you interpret this finding? So you would say that people who are in the diabetic group tend to have a higher BMI as compared to people who are not diabetic, which could be indicative of the fact that BMI may be associated with diabetes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. What else? What about the median?
Same for one category it is more than three.
And what is the definition of median?
Middlemost value of all the values.
So
When
50% lie below, 50% lie above.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a second. Let me plug in the battery. So in case of non-diabetic, for a lower level of BMI, 50% people have less BMI as compared to the diabetic. So you see from the maximum, from the median, and also from this range. So if you look at the width of this box, this has higher width as compared to this. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that means that a higher range, interquartile range, is seen in the diabetic cohort as compared to the non-diabetic cohort, and that too in a higher BMI range. So from this plot, you can actually see that there does exist a difference in the distribution of BMI of the diabetic and non-diabetic. There is a difference, and that is seen from the box plots. Now for the homework part, I would tell you to draw the histograms of the diabetic people and the non-diabetic people and look at how the distribution varies among these two people. And then you will be able to also understand the same. So this was about analyzing a one continuous variable and one categorical variable. Can you think of other examples in which this could be used? Any other kind of scenario?
Maybe price of an item in 2 or 3 different shops.
Definitely, yeah, that would be. So, in this example, there are only two categories of diabetes. There can be more categories, so there will be multiple side-by-side box plots. Okay, so if there are more than three shops or four shops, then obviously you will have three, four box plots. So if I were to include diabetic cases, non-diabetic cases, pre-diabetic cases, and gestational diabetes, then there will be four box plots across this. So this is how you at the upper level look at the distribution of one continuous variable compared with one categorical variable. So these are the observations as you identified. The median for diabetic is higher than that of non-diabetic. You know, for a long period in my life, I thought statistics was always telling about what I see on the graph, but that is half of the story. And this is the half of the story. The other half is so what? The median for diabetic is higher than that of non-diabetic. So what? What does it mean? Why should I care? And that follows the interpretation, so that it tends to show the diabetic people have higher BMI as compared to non-diabetic, and higher BMI could be associated with diabetes. So that is what you say. For your homework, try to create side-by-side box plot for diabetes age. So diabetes age in the data set is a continuous variable. And try to look at if there is any difference in the age at which people get diabetes across men and women in the data set. And then try to interpret it. And then this is just one homework that I have given. You try to identify the other continuous variables in your data set and then try to see its observation with the other categorical variables. One very important thing is, just because one variable is continuous, other is categorical, you don't mindlessly go on drawing a side by side box plot. It should actually mean something. So for example, it would really tell me something if I want to analyze the BMI of diabetic and non-diabetic people. That would clearly tell me something about what is happening in the BMI for these two groups. So the categories and the comparison that you are making should make an intuitive sense. It should mean something. It should be practically meaningful. Otherwise, it is of very little importance, no matter how great the finding is. So the categories should not be absurd in nature. They should be able to tell you something about the real world. So that is how you decide whenever you try to analyze two variables, you should always have a theoretical basis of the analysis. Why should I analyze it? What would I obtain if I analyze? Does it make even sense to analyze these two behaviors? So remember the example that we had given of correlation is not always causation. So people eating ice creams and drowning, just because these two variables are correlated does not mean that they are important to investigate. It makes absolutely no sense. So the variables that you always analyze in your data, in your modeling, they have to make a very strong theoretical sense. So there has to be a theoretical basis for exploring that. You should be able to defend that using the literature, that why I should explore. There should be a particular pathway and mechanism by which different variables interact. So modeling is just not an activity in which you throw certain variables and do some kind of analysis. It is actually an informed process to understand how variables are interacting with each other and then try to tell me something about the output. So always keep that in mind. Software is never a substitute for human thinking. Human thinking precedes the analysis. So always be careful about that. Now for two continuous variables, you already know there is a scatter plot, and generally when the data set is less, you can see the pattern, but this is a data set which is orders of the lakhs and thousands. So you won't necessarily see a clean pattern in this. Although by your intuition, you might be able to understand what will be the relationship between BMI and the age at which people get diabetic. So graphically, we don't see much because the data points are quite huge and quite dispersed. But if I compute the correlation, it is minus 0.145. So how will you interpret this correlation?
That will be negative correlation.
It is negative, but what does this mean?
Ma'am, for diabetes, one is diabetic. Sorry, as the age increases, the BMI is going to affect more for diabetes also. Like, how can I tell? BMI, higher BMI, as we saw, higher BMI cause diabetes. And so when age increases, no, I'm not able to make out anything.
That's okay. That's okay. So in correlation, we avoid the word increase and decrease. We always say because we are not trying to model anything or we are not drawing a causative model. So we refrain from the increase and decrease word. What we rather say is that higher BMI is associated with lower diabetes age of diagnosis. Okay, so that's how we say it. Imagine if a person gets diabetes at a lower age and a person who is getting diabetes at a higher age. So people generally we can say that if someone is getting diabetes at a lower age, it is highly possible and probable that they might have a higher BMI. And this is only for this particular data set. So again, the two variables that you are analyzing in a continuous variables form using scatter plot has to have some meaning. Why should I be interested in knowing how BMI correlates with diabetes? Some of you might argue that it makes no sense. Even though correlation is negative, why should I bother? So before you go on to analyze two variables of any type, categorical two variables, one categorical, one continuous, or both continuous, you must understand why understanding those two variables and analyzing them side by side is important. What kind of understanding will come through it? That is so. Another example would be the analysis of BMI versus time spent in exercise. Now, time spent in exercise is continuous, we can assume, and BMI is continuous. What do you think you will find when you analyze these two variables?
Negative
Wow.
correlation.
Yeah. Elaborate. Don't always give one word answers. Also, expand your thoughts that we will find that.
We'll find maybe we'll find that if a person starts doing more and more exercise, his BMI starts to drop
Again, I'm saying,
correspondingly.
again, I'm saying we don't use the language of causation in certain kind of experiments. We just say we might see,
Okay.
or yeah, we might see there is a high possibility of seeing that higher BMI will be associated with lower exercise duration, or lower BMI might be associated with higher exercise duration. So language is very important, especially when you write down your research protocols or thesis or results of what you found. Language and usage of words is extremely important because they reflect the accuracy and precision of your thinking and what you have found out. Otherwise, if it's clear in your mind, okay, negative correlation, but if you are not able to expand on that thought and interpret it, then it will be really difficult because chances are that a layman will not know what the meaning of negative correlation, positive correlation. But if you actually make a sentence out of it and then say, then it might be easier for that person to understand, right? So there are some words of caution. Just because we have seen certain patterns graphically or in a table, they may not mean there is a significant relationship between variables. So to understand that there is a significant relationship between variables, there is a step that is conducted by statisticians, which is beyond this module, but it relates to computation of p-values. So additional statistical analysis is required, and that is part of deeper inferential statistics. So if for those who want to understand it, an elementary coursework on statistics can help. And for those who are more interested, there's a course by Stanford University on probability and statistics. It's free. You might want to look at that course. So that really explains the nitty-gritty of inferential statistics and how to analyze different variables. So if any one of you is interested in data analysis and predictive modeling and machine learning, start with the basics. And this course will really help you to make strong foundation of your basics before you go up to tackle the more complex problems.
What is
So
on Coursera?
it's not on Coursera. Stanford had its own
Okay. Okay.
own MOOC website. So Lagunita it's called. Yeah. Lagunita. Lagunita. So in this lecture, I hope you got a brief idea about analysis of two categorical, one continuous, and two continuous variables. In the previous lecture, we understood about univariate analysis, and before that, we understood the basis of quantitative analysis. And based on 3 lectures, I would like to create some questions for you, which will help you assess your understanding of these basic topics, which are very crucial because in RM, you do come across data. In your research, you will come across some kind of data and you will have to take certain kind of decisions. So it helps to be familiar with little bit language of statistics because from there you can pick on to understand the deeper concepts. So that was for today. In the next, we will talk about reference managers next Friday. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. And I will try to make a homework sheet also for all of you. And you can attend them in your own time. So I'll give a free deadline. It doesn't have to be deadline specific. All I want is that you try. Students, most of the times, they just do things if it's part of assessment. But there are many more things which really help us to understand, which may not be a part of assessment. So I've really kept that flexibility for you guys here because I really want you to learn it without any pressure of marks. Just make mistakes and learn as you go along the way.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Please.
When there is any graph or any plot is there, ma'am, what are the basic things a person needs to keep in mind regarding that particular observations as
Okay.
per your advice? Yes, ma'am.
Right. So whenever you see a 2D graph, first look at the axis, the range of axis on x-axis and on y-axis. Look at the variables they are representing. Try to make sense out of it. That is the starting point right enough, justified enough? Does it graph has to be have 0? If it doesn't have 0, why it doesn't have 0? Axis and the variables are important. Then you look at the pattern. If you try to look at the outliers also. If you are making a 2D plot and you make a 2D plot containing all variables and then you see there are outliers, so you remove the outliers and then you see the pattern. Does the pattern change? It comes with practice. But look at the axis first. Look at the values first. Look at the raw data also.
Sure, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Mhm.
And if you remember in our some previous lectures when we had discussed data presentation and graphs, we had seen that extrapolating or increasing the size of axis and decreasing the size of axis has a very can have sometimes strong role in manipulating the pattern of the graphs. Make sure that how you label your axis is done in such a way that you are not trying to exaggerate what you have found, and that is usually taken care of by the software. But still, you should, as I said, softwares are never a substitute for human thinking and criticism. Keep that in mind. Be a skeptic even when you are working with softwares.
Can you tell, ठीक है, can you tell any softwares for basic understanding what they predict and what is our prediction?
I didn't understand.
Is there any free available software for analysis, statistics analysis, for basic understanding
Hmm.
what they are trying to predict and what is our prediction?
Meaning you want to work on a task in which you have predicted something and they have predicted something and you want to match.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. For my learning. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You could go to Kaggle.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Kaggle.com has different data sets in which certain question is posed. You develop your model and then you check your model against what they have found. Yeah. So many people have shared their solutions. You can look at the solutions of other people. You can compare yours with others. That would be a good place to start. Kaggle.com.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
Or if you want to do that at your laptop space, then have two softwares. Do exactly the same thing in Python, do exactly the same thing in R, and then compare.
Yes, ma'am. This is a better way.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
And then try to do the same kind of analysis in Excel also. We don't explore Excel much, but Excel also has different functions. We are slightly more comfortable with Excel slowly as you go towards coding based analysis. So Excel is also a great tool to verify what you have found in your softwares.
Yes, ma'am. Excel itself has a data analysis feature also.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other question?
Ma'am, why there is variation occurring in the software, different software? We are doing the same thing despite that.
Variation in the
Like our findings might vary. Like for example, I'm trying to find correlation between two variables, say BMI and diabetes, for example. So if I do it in R and Python, and if it will be very slight variation, the correlation that the value. So does it affect whole model in general? Because it is one thing just.
So I don't think there will be extreme deviations. Maybe after 5, 6 decimal places, but I don't think you will find gross deviations if you're doing the same kind of analysis in two softwares. It's very rare. And if you do find, then it could reflect how a particular function is being called in the softwares. But so far, I have seen when I have verified stuff, I've not rarely come across any situation like this. So I use Stata and R. Stata is graphical based, so you don't use much commands, but it is easy to see over there. R is command based. So this kind of activity of comparing results from two softwares has really, it really improves your confidence and your critical thinking in what you're doing. Or another thing would be that you are working in a team, exact same analysis. Person A is doing his or her analysis in their computer, you are doing in your computer. Then you sit and discuss what you found. That also is a very good activity to learn data analysis. Because when there are more members, people think very differently. So this I also have noticed. So different softwares will not give you drastically different results. If it does happen, then you need to dig deeper as to why it's happening.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, what are some examples of graphically interface analysis tools like you stated Stata?
Data is there. SPSS is there.
Okay.
Tableau is there. Excel is there. And Minitab is there. I can,
Okay, ma'am.
I will write on the classroom. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll put on the classroom. Yeah. Any other questions? So I just got over the assessment of undergrad students. I'll be starting off with their research protocols now. Hopefully, I will be able to share your feedback soon. You'll have to bear with me for some time. But I'm actually enjoying reading your research protocols. Some of them I have marked. I can really see the improvement from the first essay you had submitted and the protocol. So it makes me feel very happy that you have taken feedback in stride and tried to incorporate it.
Yes, ma'am, your feedback was very useful.
So it's good that all of you have made attempts to work on it. That's nice. I can clearly see a lot of positive difference in the protocols that you have submitted. After I assess them feedback, I will be happy to have personal meetings if you want. So, okay, then from today's lecture, then I'll think I'll work on the quiz part and try to release it. I'll try to keep the deadline flexible where you can at least attempt it. It's my observation that when there is no burden of marks, students perform better. This I've seen.
Thank you, ma'am, for your positive feedback.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is all for my end. If you have any other question, you can always call me or drop me an email. I will respond to it.
Sure, ma'am.